Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here. Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here.
A small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio,
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Oh, man, what a show we have for you this week here. Rebel Force Radio, the weekly podcast. Your source for the Force. So much more. What a show coming up in the Cantina this week. Bo Katan herself, actress Katie Sackoff. How cool is that? You know, Katie Sackoff from shows like 24, Battlestar Galactica, and of course, Clone Wars and The Mandalorian. So you don't want to miss that. That's coming up later on. Also, remember the Shawn Levy? He's in the news right now. He's got a big movie out. Obviously, the Deadpool and Wolverine movie doing very, very well and restoring faith for a lot of people in the box office and in the Marvel universe. But he's attached to a Star Wars movie, and he's got some comments that we'll get to, recent comments. And you know, this what if concept has sort of been a thing, you know, where they apply it to different franchises. It goes back in its history in comics and stuff like that. And Star Wars is getting sort of a what if in a way with this Lego special, Rebuild the Galaxy. So we're going to be taking a look at that. That was making some waves at San Diego Comic-Con. We'll be talking or listening to comments made by the creative team for that. Checking out the trailer and all that stuff. So great show. You don't want to miss it. Stay where you are. If you're new to the program and introductions may be in order. My name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Welcome back to another week of Star Wars conversation that will melt your face and blast you up against the wall with intense, I say, Jason, Star Wars conversation. It doesn't get any more intense than having Katie Sackoff on the show, Bo Katan. Holy smokes, I can't wait to talk to Katie. She is a superstar. And it was so funny. I was mentioning we were going to talk to Katie to some friends of mine, and every friend had a different reaction. Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica. Or, from 24. Yeah. I mean, everyone just has favorite Katie Sackoff roles that they love. Even like some were talking about her appearances on the Flash TV show. It's pretty amazing. She's really
so
touched upon a lot of different franchises, from Star Wars to Battlestar, of course, to the DC universe. And so who knows what's next for Katie. She certainly works a lot. And we almost thought we weren't going to get her this week because she's always shooting something. And it's great that her career is going so well. And so I'm looking forward to getting her in the Cantina where we could sit down and talk about her most famous roles. But really, Bo Katan in Star Wars is what I want to talk about with Katie Sackoff. And I miss talking to all of our listening audience with our after shows and the live calls we get during that. So if you don't mind, I'd like to jump into some listener feedback and hear what people have to say on the RFR voicemail hotline.
Let's do it.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message? Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jimmy. This is Eric from Phoenix, and this may be my most random voicemail ever. So I saw the pictures from Skeleton Crew, and you guys are talking about Skeleton Crew on this weekly show. And I'm walking the dog, and I started thinking about classic aliens that we either have rarely seen, barely seen, or not seen at all that I would love to see come into a Disney Plus series, and I don't really understand why. Number one, Prune Face. As a kid, I remember when that action figure came out, I'm like, who the heck is this guy and where is he at? Thankfully, with the letterbox version, being able to pause things and big screens, you can find Prune Face. I don't know what the heck the name of the alien is, Dreslins or something like that. We've never seen him. We've never seen him in animation. We've never seen him again. I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool to actually see them. Clearly, they're some warrior type crew or commando type crew at the time of the Return of the Jedi. I think it'd be cool to see them. Number two, Bothans. I mean, Bothans are referenced in Return of the Jedi. I thought for sure we get them in the prequels. They never show up. You know, Borsk Fela or whatever his name is, he was a jerk and he was in the EU. He's all over the place. We've never seen any Bothans. Why? You know, let's see a Bothan. And I don't care if you change them. They don't have to look like the yak or horse or whatever the heck they were supposed to look like. I don't care. But why haven't we seen them? What's the reason, Lucasfilm? I mean, seriously, they're mentioned in Jedi. Let's get them in a series. Let's show them. So anyway, random voicemail. Hope you guys are doing great, and may the force be with you.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric from Phoenix. Yeah, so some of these characters that have not shown up anywhere. Old Oramarco / we didn't have real names. We called them names like Prune Face. Prune Face, I believe, is a name that was created by the folks over at Kenner when the Return of the Jedi action figure came out. That is, I don't know that for sure, but it sounds to me, that sounds like a very Kenner type name, Prune Face, right?
I just remember back in the day when the original Kenner Return of the Jedi action figures were released. I recognized everyone from the films, except when I got to Prune Face. I said to myself, where in the hell in the movie is this scrotal sack with an eye patch?
Looks like after I nicked myself manscaping, I put a little Band-Aid there, and it's like, hey, it's Prune Face.
But you do notice him. He's in the background of in the war room on the Moncal cruiser.
Did it take the letterbox edition, Jim, for Prune Face to really show up and
maybe
gain the notoriety? I'm trying to think. I do believe that you see him walk up the ramp of the shuttle Tidarium, I believe. But you don't get
I think you're right. Yeah, when they're loading it up
Yeah.
with all the gear and Han and Lando are talking, you know, not a scratch, you promise.
Right.
Hey,
Right.
you know. And then you see Scrotum Man walking up the thing, and he's got the gear.
Yeah, because he's holding his gun up and he's got the hood. And there was a period of time where I thought that was Luke, but it's not Luke. It's not Luke.
I could see that.
Yeah.
And under no circumstances should a Prune Face appear on screen with the hood down. That's all I'm saying, because it's an ugly sight. It really is an ugly sight.
But you know what
But something tells me that this was almost a character devised out of using the makeup that they applied to Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine.
Boy, it looks real
and
close.
then they just
doesn't
kind
it?
of they really exaggerated it to such
he's
an
got that-
extreme degree.
that sort of part that goes down his brow like Palpatine does.
Most people part their hair. The Prune Faces and Palpatines part their skulls.
Yeah.
Star Wars is a weird place, man. It's a weird place.
I had a thought about where we might find Oramarco Prune Face in some of the more recent Star Wars stuff. I think he's a natural to show up with some of Saw's guys. You know, like he could show up in an Andor. I'm not saying this is happening, but in an Andor season 2, as they're getting these because he looks like a mercenary. I mean, he is, according to his Wikipedia entry, he has appeared in various Star Wars novels, books, comic books, things like that. He's never been in the any of the animated shows or any of the live action stuff, but that he does have a strategic mind. He's skilled in guerrilla warfare, and he is a valuable asset to the Rebel Alliance. And I thought, wow, okay, maybe in something like an Andor or hanging out with Saw's guys.
He would fit right in.
Yeah.
He would fit right in. I think about the alien species from the original era that we see in the current era, the Disney era, and they dump a lot of the same alien species on us. Lots of Jawas, Rhodians, the Tusken Raiders, obviously, in the Book of Boba Fett show. Mon Cal's, Rogue One. There is a hammerhead you can spot on Kijimi in The Rise of Skywalker. And I feel good about that. I think every Star Wars trilogy should have at least one hammerhead in it. And Twi'leks are a very popular alien species. And, of course, Wookiees. But no prune faces to be found anywhere. You know, the one alien species that is the most recurring species in the current era of Star Wars, the modern era of Star Wars, is the species known as the Abinettos.
The pirates?
Ring any bells, Swank? Abinettos?
Abinettos? Are these the pirate characters?
No, Eloasti. Characters like that one that Joseph Gordon-Levitt voiced in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, this is
they have
new
a very
stuff. This is
flat
Rick
head.
Baker. Said that guy. He flew that ship. Yeah, the Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, they have a real boner for that alien species currently.
Do.
Producers of Star Wars. They want to put that thing in everywhere, and I think it's a rather dull-looking design when you think about, the snaggletooths of the past.
Right.
Or a Reese.
Yeah.
Where are all the Reeses?
Where's the Grands? Where is the Grand?
Grand Theft Alien is what we got going on here. Grand Theft Alien.
Well, what about
I want to see
the
more
Bothans? You know, Eric brings up not just Prune Face, but the Bothans, and Lucasfilm seems shy about committing to a visual look of the Bothans. There's been a lot of I don't think there's been anything official, has there? In terms of committing to a look of these guys. They've been obviously referenced in books, referenced in the films, but as far as a visual, I don't know if there's anything official we could say.
The only thing we have is the shout out you get from Return of the Jedi, which some fans have, many Bothans have died. Some fans have reinterpreted that to mean Manny Bothans. So they think it's like a character name. It's not even a species.
What?
It's Manny Bothans.
There's no Manny in Star Wars. There's no character named Manny in Star Wars.
Why not? Why can't there be a Manny in Star Wars?
It's pretty clear.
Bring Manny to Star Wars.
All these people need to do is look at the script. It says many Bothans. I guess you could say Manny Bothans died. Oh, see, that's going to be in my head for days now. I'm going to be contemplating this.
That's an old joke, too. It's kind of an old one. I forget where that
I haven't heard that. That's new to me.
The most popular Bothan in the expanded universe is a guy named Borsk Falaya. Falaya. Maybe that's how you say his name. Borsk Falaya. And he was this real suspicious character in the Senate who was really driven by his own personal ambition and seen as something of an enemy to the Jedi. And he was featured in the Timothy Zahn Thrawn trilogy and other books too. I mean, he like politicians do. They could be the worst in the world, but they stick around for like 50 years.
What's with that?
So Borsk was like that.
Yeah.
But there have been no Bothans to cross over into live action
or animation.
Or animation, for that matter.
Now, what about the comic books? Has there been an official comic book depiction, or is it all fan art? What I found online was a lot of fan art.
It went through some different iterations because there was a Thrawn trilogy comics adaptation from Dark Horse that happened in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I think it was the late 90s. And in that comic book, there were two different depictions of Borsk Falaya. One of them looked just like Joe Camel. The old
I think that's
Camel
sort of the one we're looking at right now. Is
the old Camel cigarettes.
Yeah, definitely has sort of a camel look to him.
And then they evolved more to where they didn't have at times such a pronounced snout.
Mm-hmm.
And they had pointed ears.
Yeah, but outside of Legends, no official depiction of a Bothan. So who's going to be the first to canonize the look of a Bothan? I think it needs to happen.
I think, yeah, well, maybe if they ever do, what I've always wanted to see is an animated version of the Thrawn trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
And call it, if you want to make sure that everyone knows it's outside the canon, you know, call it Star Wars Legends or whatever you want to call it. But I would love to see that, an animated version of the Thrawn trilogy. And that's where you would get some real Bothan action, I think. And I'm with Eric from Phoenix that is a character that it would be nice if they tapped into that, because the characters are canonized through reference via Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi. So
I think you also came up with a great name for an episode, Real Bothan Action. I think that's a great name.
Real Bothan Action. Real Housewives of Bothan. Whatever, let's just keep it real.
Yeah, you're going to see some
thanks,
real
Eric,
Bothan action. Yeah, so
that was a good question.
Yeah. Fun to think about the characters that just sort of disappeared and we've never seen. But if you like that type of deep dive conversation, well, you ought to check out Rebel Force Radio on Patreon.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. Eric from Phoenix is one of our valued RFR VIPs at RFR on Patreon. It's a great community. You can find it at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. And you can join, and there are various levels from which you can join and make a donation to Rebel Force Radio that will ensure this podcast keeps going and going and going. Because I don't know about Swank, but I see myself in my 90s talking about Star Wars on this very channel. So, Jason,
why not?
Like,
you know what? As long as we're having fun. Hey, the thing is, as long as this continues to be fun, which it has been for almost 20 years now, we'll keep doing it.
Yeah, and I feel such a strong connection and commitment to our audience and community that I don't ever want to see this end. But I know that, like, Jason will hit 70, and he'll be like, oh, God, we're talking about the latest Skeleton Crew movie. I can't do this anymore. It's like, once they hit gold with that Skeleton Crew, they never looked back, and it was the next 20 years.
That's going to be the thing that takes
Crew.
off here in the modern era.
That'll be the one thing. Yeah.
You thought Mando and Baby Yoda were big. Wait till the Skeleton Crew shows up.
Right. Swank will be like 72 years old going, I can't believe they're still milking this Skeleton Crew thing. God. Haven't these kids grown up yet?
Oh, the kids. That's right. They just keep recasting.
We'll see how that all plays out. But the thing about RFR on Patreon is not only can you go there to show your support for your favorite Star Wars podcast, which, fingers crossed, it is Rebel Force Radio, but you can also get access to bonus podcasts, full show video, ad-free shows, early bird releases, and just a lot of specials and surprises along the way. Plus, did I mention access to an amazing Star Wars community, amazing Star Wars fan community. And we're putting out shows left and right. This week alone, we have an all-new RFR RPG, The Adventures of Podcasters continue as we keep playing Star Wars Edge of the Empire with Game Master Matt Rashid and Tyler Page as Grando the Grand. It's amazing. And we have so much fun, and we can really sort of flex our creativity muscles along the way as we play these RPG campaigns, as we play through them. As anyone knows who's actually done this, you can have a lot of fun in a very creative way, just poking around in the Star Wars universe via RPG. Also this week, the Babu Freaks have returned. The Babu Freaks are Chicago area Star Wars fans. 4 of us, we met through Rebel Force Radio Go figure. And this week with the all-new Babu Freaks, we're talking about The Acolyte. We do a full recap of the second half of the season, actually the full season. And we talk about Star Wars Marvel Comics. We talk about Fan Expo Chicago, which is coming up next week. And we'll be hitting that with Baby Belushi. Imagine.
Yeah.
Rebel Force Radio and Baby Belushi walking down the convention aisles. Every head turns. And we also talk about Star Wars Celebration Japan. There's so much going on with the Babu Freaks all the time, and the only way you can hear it is to be a supporter of Rebel Force Radio at RFR on Patreon. So go there now, patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Find the tier that appeals the most to you. Join today. Support Rebel Force Radio. Oh, and did you know that if you sign up for a full year, you will save 10% off your contributions? So that's something to keep in mind. Sign up for the full year, save 10%. You get so much great stuff. Just awesome access, like I said, to a killer Star Wars fan community. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
Filmmaker Shawn Levy has a lot to be excited about these days. Congratulations to him. Deadpool and Wolverine, huge success at the box office, setting records. Record-setting film here for R-rated films. 211 million.
Now, you haven't seen it, I'm sure.
I have not seen it because I haven't seen the other two Deadpool movies. But I'm a huge, huge fan of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and I love the X-Men films very, very much. There's been so much to-do made about Iron Man and Jon Favreau and how that ushered in this era. And sometimes I feel like the X-Men films get short shrift because those were mind-blowing for me at the time when they came out. Yeah. You know, they and I think they still hold up really well. And Hugh Jackman really had to work hard to do justice to that role of Wolverine because there was so much pressure and speculation about who would they possibly get to play that. And not only did he do it so well, but he did it so well that, you know, even into his 50s, he's being pulled back in to the role. So love the guy and love that character. Did you see the movie? Have you seen Deadpool and Wolverine?
No, not yet. We had a couple of false starts between the family going to concerts every weekend this whole summer as a group.
Yeah.
Look out, the McInerney clans are
They're
here.
like the Partridge Family going out to all the concerts, you know?
So I haven't made it to Deadpool yet, but it's playing right in the neighborhood. I wasn't planning on going to see it.
No?
I'm like, yeah, it's the third one, you know, who cares? Michael Phillips in the Chicago Tribune gave it 1 star and called it absolute crap. His words, not mine.
Wow, because critics have, it's got 97% audience score. Cinema Score, it's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 97%. There's an A Cinema Score on it. I mean, it seems to be pretty well liked. I mean, now critics going to be
some of the early reviews I saw were pretty harsh.
Yeah, interesting.
So, you know, from the print media and whatnot.
Right.
What do they know?
Here's the thing, Jim. What I have heard is that it has a ton of fan service in it. And I know we don't have the greatest relationship here on RFR with that term fan service because it's like it's given a negative connotation. It's like, well, who should you serve? The non-fans? There should be a level of fan service. And by fan service, I mean creating great stories, memorable characters, great moments for fans. But this does seem to maybe overplay the fan service, according to some. I'll say this, it's putting Shawn Levy under the microscope a little bit more than he was prior because of some of this, some of these that I've been. Yeah. I don't know if that's just part and parcel to the Deadpool vibe, breaking the fourth wall and all of that, because
the Deadpool vibe is very like irreverent and sometimes, kind of nasty.
Yeah.
And a lot of scatological humor mixed in. And
But Shawn Levy is new to the Deadpool franchise. He didn't have anything to do with the other two films. So he's brought in. So it's not like he owns that. That's not his trademark. You're saying that that's something that's been established in these movies prior to this.
No. He's working within that realm.
Yeah.
Which has already been firmly established. And the results have been massive. I mean, it's the third movie and it's such a mega hit. So I was really surprised after reading like the Chicago Tribune review and stuff. And I thought, oh, well, this is just going to be one of those meandering superhero films that won't bring people to the box office like Flash and Blue Beetle and all of the other flops that have happened over the course of the last year. But I think audiences are ready to get back to the movies. They're ready to laugh their asses off. And they look at Deadpool as something of a very unique, original, and special kind of character that is really outside the mold of your typical superhero in spandex with the pure heart saving the day. Deadpool has a lot of skeletons in his closet, to say the least. And to team him up then with Hugh Jackman returning as Wolverine, that's become irresistible for audiences. So this thing has been huge box office, biggest R-rated film of all time.
It's going to hit $1 billion, 852 million worldwide as of now.
It's been out for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So very impressive. I do plan on seeing it very soon. I just need some time away from the concerts and the podcasts and occasional baseball games to get to it.
But what does this have to do with Star Wars? It has to do with Star Wars.
Well, Shawn Levy, the director.
Shawn Levy.
So he's riding high right now.
Sure.
So it's kind of a good time to fit him into Star Wars. Now, other people have been riding high coming into Star Wars, like Colin Trevorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And he put out Book of Henry, and the whole thing was over for him.
Yeah.
It was all over.
That's how it
Game
went.
of Thrones guys.
Right.
Game of Thrones guys came in with a fat, rich pedigree. And then the final season of Game of Thrones was released, and all of a sudden, they couldn't work in Star Wars, and Star Wars couldn't work with them.
Right.
It's really funky how this business works.
It's fickle. It's a fickle business, Jim.
It's fickle. It's petty.
Yeah.
It's very petty. But Shawn seems to be kind of a good guy who knows how to make movies, and he's working on Stranger Things, and he's got Star Wars on the horizon. Although Lucasfilm has never officially announced his film.
Right.
Or, there's no placement for it on the schedule, as far as we know. But they also keep in mind, The Mandalorian and Grogu was unannounced and had no place on the schedule. And they had 3 films that they were looking forward to releasing.
Mm-hmm.
The Rey film, the Dawn of the Jedi film, and the Filoni Mandoverse conclusion.
Team up.
Or big event, whatever they called it.
Yeah, right.
And then all of a sudden Mandalorian and Grogu show up because that's the one they could fast track because all the other productions were faltering.
Yeah.
Now with Shawn Levy, they haven't announced him yet. This weekend we have D23. There could be some confirmation of Shawn Levy's involvement with Lucasfilm, but I doubt it.
Wouldn't you think that they want to do that now? Like, what better time to announce a Shawn Levy Star Wars movie than when this film, Deadpool and Wolverine, is going to cross $1 billion? Perfect timing.
I think it was entertainment reporter Jeff Snyder who said that it's possible the Levy production is being developed in case the Charmin Obaid-Chinoy Rey film falters.
I remember that this might be a little bit of a plan B.
A plan B.
Yeah. Wow.
So these are things that we need to keep in mind because we're going to hear from Shawn Levy himself in just a minute. It's said that his film will focus on Rey. That's what Jeff Snyder was reporting.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
But we couldn't understand if it was part of the Rey story that's being told via the Charmin Obaid-Chinoy film, or if this was going to be a story about an older Rey, which is something that Damon Lindelof was pushing. Helen Mirren as Rey, anyone?
Yeah.
It could be that. We don't know what it is. So that's why whenever Shawn talks about Star Wars, we here at RFR have our ears wide open. And one of our favorites, Josh Horowitz with Happy, Sad, Confused, sat down with Shawn Levy to talk about Deadpool. And at the end, as Josh always does, he's like the most reliable, legitimate journalist out there covering Hollywood. When it comes to Star Wars, he's the most reliable. He will always sneak in a question, whether it be with Daisy Ridley or Guillermo del Toro or Shawn Levy.
He's like our Columbo. One last question. There's one more thing that's bothering me. Star Wars.
Yeah. Josh Horowitz, what a great guy. So he asked Shawn Levy about his Star Wars film that's in production. And of course, Shawn is very careful about what he says, but he does reveal a few tasty tidbits. So let's hear from Happy, Sad, Confused Josh Horowitz and Shawn Levy, and then we'll break down his comments.
Star Wars is being written, your Star Wars film, amazing. Are you writing with actors in mind?
Oh, wow. You're asking the right questions. Sort of, yes.
People maybe you've
Please don't ask a follow-up. Okay. Please don't ask a follow-up.
Tell me this. What is Star Wars to you? Is Star Wars the Skywalkers? Is it the Force? Is it like what do you love about Star Wars?
I'll say that the experience of crafting this story has forced me to think about that question, because there's only so many times that Star Wars movies can revisit the same section of the timeline. And so it's really forced me, because I don't want to do a Star Wars movie that is redundant to others, nor am I interested in doing one that has to serve another movie. I really wanted to craft something that felt organic to me, both in tone and characters. So I think that there's certainly the Force and a connection to something bigger than our individual selves, and the way that can make us powerful. Those themes combined with visual delight and wish fulfillment, that's Star Wars to me.
There you go. He's definitely interested in something new, something fresh, something. Jim, when he talks about how it doesn't serve another film, he could be referring to something like a Rogue One that butts right up into Episode 4, A New Hope. Or he could be thinking about, well, I don't want this to necessarily have the pressure of having to launch a trilogy. What he seems to be referring to is I want to be able to tell my story as a standalone thing, something that sets apart. Now, a name that I thought I heard was Jonathan Tropper, who is a collaborator of Shawn Levy's, and who I think when Horowitz was asking, you're writing this, and I think Shawn thought he was going to say with Jonathan Tropper, but at any rate, he's a frequent collaborator with him, so I think he's going to be writing the Star Wars movie with John. So, yeah, he doesn't want to say much, he doesn't want to commit to much, but it sounds like it's still happening, it's still on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's on. It's on, but when and where and how it's going to be released, it's yet to be determined. What he says, it's the things that he says that stands out the most. He doesn't want to do a Star Wars movie that is redundant to others. Is that a direct reference to J.J. Abrams' The Force Awakens?
Possibly.
It might be.
Right.
Where it was kind of a rehash. Nor am I interested in doing one that has to serve another movie. So he's not looking, yes, like you said, Jason, to launch a trilogy. He wants a self-contained story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And man, does Star Wars need something like that these days. So that way he feels like he can craft a solid story without having to do things like Leslie Headland's doing with The Acolyte, in sitting on some really good ideas in the hopes that there's going to be a season 2.
Yeah.
Shawn wants to throw it all at us all at once, and then he might want to go like this and walk away. You know, do the best Star Wars he can do. Not contribute to the franchise, but to create the best Star Wars story he can tell in a 2-hour movie. And that's, I love that approach. I really do. And now that he's had such mad success with Deadpool, he might have the clout to pull off something.
That's the
like
word
that.
for it, the clout. And can he, in the way that J.J. Abrams had the clout to come back to Star Wars, despite what is rumored to be a fairly rocky relationship between J.J. and Bad Robot and Lucasfilm, because that's what it takes, Jim, to go up against what seems to be the need to be able to go up against somebody like Kathleen Kennedy.
Or the brass at Disney.
Or the brass at Disney.
And all these people, or the story group. I want quality filmmakers, quality storytellers telling quality stories for Star Wars, and not being told, no, you can't do this because we have a High Republic novel coming out next year that does something kind of like that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, they need to keep their eyes on the prize and let good filmmakers make good films. And Star Wars really could use something like that these days. I hope we get that with Mandalorian and Grogu. I have a lot of faith in a guy like Jon Favreau, who does have the clout to create stories he wants to create. And I know that John, with a recommitment to the focus of doing something like a feature film, which is probably something he's been wanting to do with Star Wars for a long time. Jon Favreau was an accomplished film director.
Yeah.
And then you put him on the Disney Plus streaming service, and he provides great results and
incredible
has huge
results.
Success.
Lightning in a bottle.
And
I mean, Baby Yoda was, I think because we just lived it, we don't realize how profound that was. He reignited something that I didn't think was ever going to be to that level again. I mean, you still see Baby Yoda merch when you go into the store. So that's not to be taken for granted.
And now I think Shawn Levy has definitely achieved that status in Hollywood right now. Just as long as he doesn't put out a Book of Henry, we should be okay.
Yeah. Shawn, please make your next project the Star Wars project. It's not clear to me that that's what his next project is. You know, who knows?
Well, it's the film is obviously in early development. The script is still being worked on. And for Shawn Levy, obviously there's going to be a lot of offers being thrown at him.
Oh, yes.
He has Stranger Things, I believe, is in production.
Yes.
Is it still?
It is still in production. I think they're about, I saw something on social media. I think they're about halfway done with the final season of Stranger Things in terms of production. So
beyond being a director, he also is a producer. And so he has according to IMDb, as I look at it right now, he has 18 projects in various stages of development.
Are they listing the Star Wars film? Is that on the IMDb? Untitled Star Wars project or anything like that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't see that currently on his IMDb. No, I don't see that. Nothing about Sesame Street.
Wow.
There's some Sesame Street project he's working on.
No kidding. A sequel to Follow That Bird? We're finally going to get that?
Big Bird and friends are expelled from Sesame Street, ending up in Manhattan.
Evicted. Wait a minute, are you reading this for real?
Yeah,
I thought you were making this up. I thought this was a bit.
Big Bird and friends are expelled from Sesame Street, ending up in Manhattan. They join a TV host trying to prove Sesame Street exists, facing opposition from the mayor who wants to keep it hidden.
Whoa.
So that's the Sesame Street movie.
This does sound like a sequel to Follow That Bird. Dang.
My favorite description of Sesame Street comes from Dwight Schrute of The Office.
Was that the program where all those puppets live in the barrio? Mm-hmm. I love that show.
All right. Well, moving on from Shawn Levy, let's talk about Disney Plus next month. We thought we'd have to wait until December 3rd for the next Disney Plus TV show, Star Wars TV show. But no, we only have to wait until next month, September 13th. We've got a new Lego special, Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy. It's a 4-parter. 4-part miniseries, Disney Plus, following the adventures of Sig Griebling. Sig Griebling, a nerf herder. We're going to see what a real nerf herder is.
Sig Griebling.
Sig Griebling, he's a nerf herder who discovers a powerful Jedi artifact that mixes up the entire Star Wars galaxy. And it leads to an adventure where familiar roles are reversed. Good guys become bad and vice versa. Hey, speaking of Stranger Things, Gaten Matarazzo, Dustin from Stranger Things, is the voice actor behind Sig Griebling, the hero.
Oh, no kidding. I love that kid.
Yeah, I saw him.
I like that kid a lot.
I saw him on Broadway back in May in Sweeney Todd as Tobias a year ago.
Really?
Yeah, saw him in Sweeney Todd. Played Tobias in Sweeney Todd. Very good. All right, well, let's watch the trailer. Let's see what's going on with this new.
Fire up that trailer.
Let's,
because I'm curious. I'm so curious about this show now.
All right, let's check it out.
Space, time, it's falling apart. The building blocks of the galaxy are getting mixed up. This doesn't make any sense. Worlds will change. People will change in ways we cannot possibly imagine. I don't love that. This is wild. X-Wing TIE Fighters? Ewok bounty hunters?
Misa going to hurt you, sir.
Darth Jar Jar?
Darth Jar Jar, holy cow. Dang. Okay, so this is the Star Wars equivalent of What If. Jim, there were lots of rumors about a year ago or more about there being some sort of Star Wars What If series. Marvel has done this. It's been done in comic book lore, and I think didn't Dark Horse do kind of a What If series? I recall the one I remember is Darth Maul showing up on Tatooine to face off against Owen Lars. Right, that was part of a What If series of comics.
Yeah, it was this anthology comic called Star Wars Tales, which I know is, it's currently being used for other parts of the franchise, I guess, with the Tales of the Jedi, that kind of thing. But that's what it was called, Star Wars Tales, simply. And each issue would have like 3 or 4 different short stories about everything from R5-D4 being a Jedi droid to a showdown between Darth Vader and Darth Maul.
Yeah, these
had all kind of great
kind of
stories.
A what if sort of scenario, right?
It was very much a what if. There was a lot of talk earlier this year that there's going to be a Star Wars What If animated series. But I think what people were speculating about actually is turning out to be this Lego special.
Yeah.
This is the what if. What if Darth Jar Jar was reality? The Darth Jar Jar meme, that's been floating around now for about 10 years or so.
Yeah.
I just remember I was doing some local media when The Force Awakens came out, and a reporter asked me what I thought of the Darth Jar Jar theory. I call it theory. I'm like, I'll tell you what I think of that theory. I think it's a bunch of overindulgent fans hooked up to a nitrous oxide tank. That's what I think of Darth Jar Jar.
Well, Jar Jar is the one that rallies the Galactic Senate to give Chancellor Palpatine the emergency powers.
Yes.
So that he can wage war against the separatists. And some thought that was, that he was under the control of the Darksider, was a Darksider himself. No, I think he was just a typical politician, sadly, kind of a boob, kind of a useful idiot is really what he was.
Yeah. A tool for
right.
the Palpatines of the galaxy. And he did exactly what Palpatine coerced him into doing in his own subtle Machiavellian ways.
Yeah.
But I mean, Jar Jar is just a type of character to take the bait. And so fans try to apply a bit of intelligence to Jar Jar, maybe a bit of manipulative qualities to his personality that don't really exist. Because really what you see with Jar Jar Binks is what you get. I mean, he's really a very authentic dude. He's just some guy in the galaxy.
Right.
A bunch of crap comes across his doorstep, and he deals with it the only way he knows how to deal with it. Which is kind of a shame. I always wanted to see the character evolve from goof to like really capable and reliable military general. It seemed like that's the trajectory.
Like a Captain Tarples.
Yes. Somebody who had an air of authority about him at the end of the day.
That there would be an evolution to him.
Yeah. But there was no evolution with the character.
Right.
He was very restricted, I think. Mm-hmm. And as much as George Lucas likes the character and probably always wanted to preserve the sort of innocence about the character and the naivete, I think the character could have benefited from some real character growth that was never applied. I thought that could be kind of compelling. He is kind of goofy in design altogether.
Right. Hard to take
as
him
you
seriously,
say, Jason,
right?
you bring up Captain Tarples, and there were other Gungan warriors that you would see on the battlefield, and you didn't get the same sort of slapsticky vibe from them.
No.
I think there was room for growth.
Right. Yeah.
But nobody thought he would grow into an evil Sith Lord. And some fans like to go back and watch the prequels thinking that it is Jar Jar Binks manipulating and pulling the strings behind the scenes for everything. And I've never really been able to access that part of my fandom mental state to jump on board with it. Let's talk a little bit about this Lego special because it does drop next month, and I'm very much looking forward to it because I think this will be a fun show to look at and talk about on RFR and sort of pick it apart a little bit to see maybe like what actually would fit into the Star Wars galaxy. Jason, you put up a picture of the cast and crew with the white armored Darth Vader, which does come from, it was another Star Wars comic where they did these retelling of films, like the original trilogy.
They even did action figures of some of these characters. There's a. Do you remember the comic 2-packs? Are we thinking about the same thing, Jim? There was a comic book 2-pack where you could get the white Darth Vader. That was part of the story is if he had turned to the good side and survived his encounter with Luke Skywalker on the second Death Star, and he comes back to the Ewok village and it's like ready to hang out.
These alternate tellings, these alternate looks at the Star Wars universe came from Dark Horse Comics back when they had the license. And they called these comic books Star Wars Infinities.
Infinities, that's right.
Yes,
yeah.
And you can find them if you have access to the Marvel Unlimited app, even though it was a Dark Horse comic when the license shifted from Dark Horse to Marvel, all the stories came along with it. In a classic Lucasfilm move. Sure, you can write and publish and release all the Star Wars comic books you want, but at the end of the day, we own the stories. Lucasfilm owns the stories. And that's how they operated in this case. So when the Star Wars catalog, the comic catalog, moved over to Marvel, so did all those Dark Horse stories. And so if you have the Marvel Unlimited app, you can access
all the Dark
all
Horse
of those
stuff,
great
really?
stories. Yes, all the Dark Horse
Wow,
stuff
I didn't
is
know that.
available via Marvel nowadays.
Huh.
It's great. It's so wonderful. I mean, I spend so much time with
So
my
that includes
iPad and
all
that
of
Marvel
the classic
app.
Marvel stuff, then the Dark Horse stuff, and then all the modern
Yes.
Marvel stuff.
The complete Star Wars comic catalog.
Wow.
It's all there.
Wow.
It's all there. And you can access it all digitally just with the app itself. I mean, to me, it's a dream come true because as much as I've enjoyed collecting comic books throughout my life, the thing that drove me and motivated me to go to the stores to purchase those comic books wasn't the collecting factor. It was I wanted access to the stories.
Yeah,
That's
right.
all that matters to me are the stories themselves. And, that being said, I still take great pride in my physical comic book collection. But really, the thing that I care about most is access to the storytelling. And so you get this with the Marvel Unlimited app. And I use it all the time. Star Wars Infinities, alternate versions of the original trilogy. From A New Hope to Empire to Jedi. It's all there. And in the Jedi book, Luke is able to turn Vader back to the light side well before his death. He survives, and he reappears in the final panel of the Return of the Jedi Star Wars Infinity story. He appears as Darth Vader, but completely in white armor to signify his shift from the dark side of the Force to the light side of the Force. And I guess this Vader is going to show up in the Star Wars Lego Rebuild the Galaxy special. So you see they're all standing around a big white Lego Darth Vader. So we have some clips here from some of the creatives. They sat down with GameStop.com at San Diego Comic-Con a couple of weeks ago, and they discussed what we can expect from this new Star Wars feature, this special, this Lego special. You know, these Lego specials, sometimes they seem like they show up and we don't really care about them. They seem really disposable. That summer vacation thing from last summer was dreadful. But but I think I sense a lot of potential in Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, and I'm really curious to see what it's all about. Writer-producer Benji Samit sat down with GameStop.com and explained the basic premise and concept behind Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy.
We took the Star Wars universe and the Lego Star Wars universe and, completely turned it all on its head. We wanted to recreate what it feels like to play with your Star Wars Lego. Like, you hand anyone a bin of Star Wars Lego and they don't just act out the scenes from the movies exactly as they are. No, you dump it on the ground, you mix and match pieces, you good guys are bad guys are good, everything's twisted around, ships are mashed up, and it's just like, we wanted to, for the 25th anniversary of the Lego Star Wars partnership, to just like make something that is a pure celebration of that way of play.
Boy, I got to tell you, this made me feel old. This clip made me feel old because normally when you hear Star Wars creatives talking about play with Star Wars, it's about, remember when you dumped your Kenner Star Wars action figures out on the living room floor and played with these things? Now you got a guy like Benji here who's like, remember when you were playing with your Star Wars Legos? But I do remember actually. I have to take it back to the original Kenner action figures of playing with some of those roles, like where you'd have a good guy become a bad guy, and a bad guy become a good guy. We're all kind of working out our little soap operas there in our storytelling. And I do remember a storyline in my own Star Wars action figure play where Darth Vader did go to the light side. He went to the light side and was working with the rebels to take down the Emperor. So, yeah, Benji's kind of, at least in the case with, he's talking about Legos, but yeah, we all had those moments when we were, playing with the toys and telling our own stories.
I'm looking forward to when they start animating Star Wars Play-Doh, and it can
Play-Doh.
It can recreate the moments when I would take a Play-Doh R2-D2 and shove it into Billy Mac's mouth and demand he chew it up.
Jeez.
That's how I played with
Billy
Star Wars
Mac.
when I was a kid. Star Wars Play-Doh. What a hoot.
I loved Star Wars Play-Doh. And I had the Return of the Jedi set. It had the Jabba's
I
Palace
enjoyed it.
Star Wars Play-Doh. You said that's a whole other franchise that we need to, or sub-franchise we need to launch. There's Star Wars Lego. Could we get someone to animate some Star Wars Play-Doh, please? That'd be fun.
Yeah, what's so hard about that? I mean, Star Wars Play-Doh, and you could have like Mr. Bill appear and stuff. Oh no,
Star Wars
but like
Shrinky
Mr. Like
Dinks?
3PO would be the Mr. Bill. Oh no, no. Yeah, like instead of like Sluggo, it could be Chewbacca terrorizing him or something.
Oh, Mr. Bill. All right, so Benji and his team trying to sort of harken back to that times when you're playing with your Star Wars toys where anything is possible. Anything is possible, and that's what's going on with Rebuild the Galaxy.
You could put TIE fighter wings on an X-Wing, crazy crap like that.
That's cool.
You put Darth Vader's head on Princess Leia's body. Anything can happen. So they talked to Dan Hernandez, who is Rebuild the Galaxy writer and producer, and he tells GameSpot that the team realized that this may be the only opportunity to get some of the crazier, meme-worthy ideas about Star Wars out into the open, like a Darth Jar Jar, for example. When else would these guys have the opportunity to do something like that unless they had this what-if situation, Star Wars Lego Rebuild the Galaxy? So here's Dan Hernandez talking about how the team just went for it.
I think for us, that was what was so exciting about Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy and the opportunity for different modes of Star Wars storytelling, where we said, maybe this is the only possible way to actually tell the story of Darth Jar Jar, and what would that look like? And to kind of take it seriously as not just a meme joke, but to say, well, okay, what would cause him to become a Sith? Where would he end up in this version of the Star Wars galaxy? And writing it in such a way where we said, can he actually be scary? Can he actually be something that people never thought that they would see? And then to have, on top of that, Ahmed Best come back and be Darth Jar Jar and everything that he brought to that character, because he is so thoroughly embodies, we're such huge fans of his and of the character, but to really see the creation of Jar Jar from the ground up, to see him physicalize it, to be in the booth, to do the voice. And he was excited to do a different version of the character too, because he was aware of the fan theories and of the memes and all of that stuff. And so he came in and he started improvising. He started just talking all kinds of crazy Darth Jar Jar smack talk, and we basically said, yes, just that's in the show. It's all going right into the show. And so that to us was one of the reasons to do a show like this, is to say, what haven't we seen before? What can we get away with doing? And to Lucasfilm and Lego's credit, they said, go for it.
Disa Revenge. A revenge of Jar Jar, revenge of Ahmed Best. This has to be so cathartic for Ahmed to just let his...
can you imagine? Yeah. He just unleashes.
Misa, finding your lack of faith is disturbing.
Just crazy stuff,
Right. I think that's what I'm most looking forward to be honest with you, is the Darth Jar Jar stuff. There's the
authenticity to have Ahmed Best return to that role.
Right.
And so they're not messing around, they're bringing in the heavy guns here. This is no BJ, what was his
BJ
name,
Hughes.
from the BJ Hughes situation?
Hughes. Yeah.
This is no BJ Hughes. And Rebel Force Radio alone, our podcast alone, we blew the lid off of that BJ Hughes controversy.
We weren't buying
Everyone
it.
was like, back in the day, there were a handful of Star Wars podcasts, and a few of them were talking about Clone Wars. And I would listen to some of them because I actually listened to Star Wars podcasts back then. And they would just be like, yes, and a new voice talent is on board to play Jar Jar Binks, a guy, B.J. Hughes, an actor named G. But for us, we saw this B.J. Hughes, and oh no, we had to dig beneath the surface as far as that is concerned, and we could find no evidence of the existence of an actor named B.J. Hughes anywhere.
No.
Somebody had a credit on that Carol O'Connor show In the Heat of the Night.
Oh my God.
An actor named
this is classic.
One episode.
Classic.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
An actor named B.J. Hughes did appear on that show. But that's the only credit to his entire career.
Mac was like
And that
dog
back in
was like a dog
1987.
with a bone on this BJ Hughes. He was and
I'm
the
like, wait a
listeners, everybody was in on this trying to figure it out. And it turned out it was essentially a fake name of an
For Phil Lamar.
Phil Lamar. So
Phil Lamar was the voice.
right,
yeah.
but he needed to take it
was B.J.
uncredited.
Hughes.
He had to take it uncredited for some reason. And we later would learn that I think D. Bradley Baker told us, Jim, that there's a limit to how many characters a voice actor can play in a given episode before they require additional compensation, etc. So it was all union stuff that they were trying to skirt around with that B.J. Hughes.
And I think they were trying to protect Phil Lamar.
Sure.
From taking heat from his, let's just say, less than acceptable Jar Jar Binks voice.
Yeah.
Oh, Misha having a bad day, Misha is.
By the way,
like, no,
Kyle
wait a
Newman
second.
to this day still does the best B.J. Hughes version of Jar Jar. Kyle does the best.
But yeah, so BJ didn't exist. And the reason why Amit wasn't there is because they were just paying him scale.
Right.
To recreate this character. He's like, if you're just going to pay me scale, pay someone else scale. Because I ain't doing it. And Amit did set out a few episodes of Clone Wars where Jar Jar was featured. And then they got it together and gave him the proper amount of pay he deserves.
Right.
But, a lot of those voice actors, especially in the early seasons of Clone Wars, were just being paid scale. And, we're talking great talents who were bringing a lot of integrity to their performances as these characters, and they were just being paid scale. A lot of that has changed. There's been new agreements with unions and things like that over the years as a result of things like strikes and whatnot, but and renegotiations. So that is the story of B.J. Hughes. But a voice actor who's been seen getting some mileage lately in Star Wars is SNL veteran Bobby Moynihan. And Bobby appears in Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy as a character named Jedi Bob. So he's
Jedi Bob.
He's been voicing characters. He voiced a character in Star Wars Resistance named Orca, and he's appeared in other Star Wars animated shows, providing his vocal talents for characters in the Clone Wars, the Bad Batch, Star Wars Visions, and even the virtual reality exhibits that they had, the VR experiences that they had at places like Downtown Disney, the Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. He played a character in that named Cecil Slack. Cecil Slack. My throat almost didn't want me to say that. Cecil Slack. So Bobby is one of those. He's becoming one of those go-to vocal talents for Star Wars animation, and they bring him in to play Jedi Bob and Rebuild the Galaxy, and here he is talking about his character.
Jedi Bob is kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he's a little over it. He's like Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon. I keep saying, like, he's too old for these bricks. He's a good Jedi. He follows the Jedi Order, but maybe he's not so great at lightsabers, or he's a little tired, and he's the reluctant. You know, he's like, do I need a Padawan? He's that guy, and it's really fun to play. It's absolutely the best.
It almost sounded like he was describing Master Saul from Acolyte.
I'm over
Do I
it.
Do I really need a Padawan? Do I have to have saber duels?
Yeah.
So there's Bobby Moynihan. So it should be funny stuff.
Yeah.
That's it. We're not expecting the reinvention of the wheel here, or the repulsor lift, if you want to keep it in Galaxy. We're just looking for some laughs, and these Star Wars Lego shows really do bring the laughs. One time I asked Leland Chee, I'm like, how come there's no like governing over the stories that get told in Star Wars Lego? And he just said, hey man, that's its own thing, and it's always going to be its own thing.
Star Wars Lego canon is its own thing, and it's not, it's not trying to establish anything in canon proper. And that's the only way you could really handle something like Star Wars Lego. And it really is, it's the playground. It's where you just go to have fun. You don't have to worry about all the other stuff.
Rebel Force Radio.
All right, well, we are about to have some fun ourselves here on Rebel Force Radio, going into the cantina. My goodness, we have an incredibly talented actress joining us, known for iconic roles in sci-fi and beyond, from Kara Starbuck Thrace in Battlestar Galactica to Bo Katan Kryze, of course, in Star Wars, The Clone Wars, and The Mandalorian. She has made a mark on the screen and also then taken to the airwaves with her podcast, the Katie Sackoff Show podcast, where she shares her insights and conversations with fascinating guests. So please, let's step into the cantina with the one, the only, Katie Sackoff.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master?
For a drink.
Sorry about the mess.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
Oh my gosh, Katie Sackhoff in the cantina on Rebel Force Radio. This is awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You guys do the same thing that I do on my podcast, where I introduce people after I've recorded them, because me trying to do something live, it takes me at least 10 times to get my intro right. So.
Oh, it's a nightmare. And, I mean, not only are we talking to a big Star Wars star here, TV star, but you're a fellow podcaster, so there's that extra bit of pressure. We gotta look good. So you walk away thinking we know what we're doing here, which is very important.
At the same
Very
time,
important.
like because I have a podcast, I know how hard it is in actuality. So I am. You guys are doing a great job. Anyone who has a podcast is doing a great job.
Well, while we're talking about it, the Katie Sackoff Show podcast, and I guess my first question about that is, what in the world? Why would you start a podcast when you have this amazing career? Why podcast?
What's funny is the Sackoff Show really came sort of as this like culmination of, I think, like, as social media started to divide us more and COVID happened, I found myself craving authentic conversations, not only with like my friends, but co-stars and people that I respect and people that I admire. And I really wanted to like meet them on this like very real level and just have conversations. Yes, of course, talking about the projects that they have, past and present, but really just like learning who they are. And it's so crazy to me that I sat down with one of my best girlfriends, Tricia Helfer, whom I've known for, Battlestar Galactica, the pilot shot in 2003. I've known her forever. We have talked about everything. We have been through so much together in life. And I learned things about her that I'd never known because I interviewed her. But interviewed her from a place of, I want to know who this person is, as if I didn't know anything about them. And it was really wonderful.
I saw a video on your Instagram where you and Trisha were in your car and you were playing a little flatulence joke with her. How did you do that? They're just driving along and all of a sudden loud farts start coming through the speaker. I assume they were coming through the speakers of the car, not from you, Katie.
You know what's funny is that was, I had picked Trisha up from someplace and she was like, I'm starving, get me food. And my husband, the Tesla, it was, my husband's car, and I had driven it. It was like the first time that I drove it. And he had shown me how you can make it fart. And I thought it was the funniest.
Wait. Are you saying that this is a feature of the car?
Yes, you guys, it's the only thing good about Tesla. It literally, I
can't believe this.
thing. And it's attached to the turn signal too. So it's
it's always accessible for you.
Always. I think you might have to turn it on. It's been a while. That video was probably 3 years ago. But it one of the things that Trish and I have always had, and what is this ability to take the piss out of each other and laugh forever and just not stop. And the problem is, the more I laugh or the more she laughs, the more the other person laughs, and to the point where, you literally feel like you're about to pee your pants. We did a motorcycle ride together about 15 years ago now called the La La Ride. And it was how long ago it was, you guys, we Ustreamed every night. Like we did live Ustreams every night.
Ustream. We used Ustream back in the day.
Back in the day. And we had this moment where we were delirious. We'd done this motorcycle ride, I think, for like 8 days. We were exhausted. It was a lot. We drove through weather. Things got crazy. And we did a live at the very end. We were doing this live Ustream and we were answering fan questions. And somebody asked us a question, and you can look at this. It's on YouTube. There's a moment where somebody says, I have 5 bicons. And we're both looking at each other going, bicons. What the fuck is a bicon? And then all of a sudden it dawns on me and I went, Bichons. And we were on the floor. I think I peed my pants. We laughed for 3 minutes straight and couldn't breathe. It was so funny. And so Trish and I have the ability to do this. And so I thought, this will be fantastic.
I was racking, Katie, when you said Bicon, I was racking my brain because I watched Battlestar Galactica and I'm like, was there a Bicon? What was that, a name of a they were Cylons. They weren't Bicons.
Yes. And when you're tired, spelling doesn't make sense.
No. For sure not. But we have found we've been very fortunate too with Rebel Force Radio, having some of our closest friends and people that we've met, just in the community. Every time we talk to them, we learn something new. Because when you put these microphones and these headphones on, it does change the conversation, and it can in a very good way. So it's cool that you've learned that as well.
It does. I've learned a couple things about myself that I knew, but I didn't. One was very clear to me that I had ADHD. And because listening to someone and not talking over them was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it wasn't out of a lack of respect. It was that my brain was going so fast and I was so excited that I couldn't slow myself down. And I brought it up and I was talking to my therapist and he had said, well, do do you want a diagnosis? And I was like, a diagnosis? I didn't come to you for a diagnosis. I came to you to just talk about my problems. And I said, but sure, if you want to tell me what my quote unquote diagnosis is, please, doc, shoot. And he said, well, you are clearly textbook ADHD. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? No. And that was really interesting for me to learn, because I came home and I told my husband, and he was like, yeah, we all know that. But what it did for me was it made me realize that listening was a tool, and it was a skill that I had never learned, because not only do I have ADHD, but I grew up in a family where I think everybody probably did, and we talked over each other, and that was just our way of communicating. So podcasting really taught me how to listen and develop that skill.
That's interesting. When you were younger, did you ever desire to maybe, before the acting career took off, maybe get into radio or something like that, or host a talk show?
I always thought I'd go into journalism. I thought that I would sort of, lean that direction. I think I could have probably done the weather. But
because you don't have to be right.
Look, I always wanted to be in front of a camera. I loved to sort of dive into the human experience and escape myself and my life and perform,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And perform, you have, some of the most iconic roles in some of the greatest TV series. I actually forgot, Katie, as I remember, as we were talking about having you on the show, I was a huge fan of 24, as so many people were, and I completely forgot, because so much happens on that show over the years, and it was my first binge experience with any television show, because I didn't watch it when it first aired, but as soon as it hit the streamers, my wife and I we lost like months of our lives just watching that show. And then I remembered there was a Star Wars connection, because you were in the show with Freddie Prinze Jr., who is also part of the Star Wars family, as Kanan Jarrus in Star Wars Rebels. So, it always comes back to Star Wars. They say 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's really 6 degrees of Star Wars. But I am curious. I was surprised to find out that you had a early experience with 24. You auditioned for a different role, and then that you didn't get, and then 8 years later you end up on the show. Is that correct?
No.
There's lies on the internet.
No, that's not true. But the real story is actually much more interesting, to be honest. The real story, Jesus, you guys, I've been doing this for so long. Maybe I auditioned for a character that I didn't get. It's possible. But the story that I remember is that I had, at 28, they had my thyroid removed because I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And right after 28. They took my 28, right after Battlestar. And I had done a pilot for Dick Wolf weeks after they took my thyroid out. And it was an awful experience. Awful. It was awful. And to no fault of anyone other than I should never have gone back to work so quickly. I should never have been on set. I should never have been doing those long hours. My thyroid levels were not regulated. I was all over the place. I was depressed. I had just gone through this life-changing thing and really had no handle on it yet, because I went right back to work thinking that I was like a superhuman person. And it went disastrously. Thank God we didn't get picked up, but it was with Brian Cox, and I wish I could go back and do it again, because it would be such a different experience now. But I digress. Right after that, I was looking for a job in California, because I thought if I could work in LA and be home, I can lean on my support system during that time instead of go away. And so 24 came up, like, to be like the new baddie on 24. And I didn't even know it was like the new baddie. Just this new character, but I knew it was a new regular. I knew it was shooting in Los Angeles. And I was like, this is it. I should try to get this. I went in and tanked it, you guys. As I left there, I called my GP, Dr. Ben Basat, who had helped me through my diagnosis and everything with my cancer. And I told him, he goes, how you going, kid? And I told him what just happened. And he goes, turn around. And I went, what? And he goes, I'm best friends with Brandon Braga. Turn around. And I was like, what? And he goes, I'm going to call them and make them see you again. And they
Brandon
saw
Braga,
me again.
who was the showrunner for many Star Trek television series for a long time. So that's a good friend to have.
It's a good friend to have. And I turned around and they let me do it again. And I got it.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, once I refreshed my memory on your character of Dana Walsh, I'm like, oh yeah, I loved her, and then I hated her. You know, which is I think what you want with a character like that. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't necessarily gone back and watched that, but great performance, and of course, you know, Battlestar Galactica, probably one of the most, if not the most critically acclaimed sci-fi series of all time, and you know, to go from that into Star Wars, which we're obviously going to talk about, but have to talk about Battlestar because it was so iconic, and in what I think started sort of, or at the beginning of that golden age of television that ushered in the you can't miss it, bingeable type of television. Were you all aware in shows like that something different, something new was happening within TV?
You know, it's
storytelling on TV.
It's funny because Eddie Olmos is a guest on my podcast, I think next week, and we talk about this very thing because Eddie knew from the very beginning that this was different, that this was special, as did Mary. I think the rest of us, I mean, granted, you know, I think at this point I'd had like 4 failed TV shows. I was like, I knew that if I could book Battlestar Galactica, it would make people see me differently, because up till then, I had played the characters you wanted to die, the annoying teenager, the girl with purple hair, the ditzy blonde, the dumb blonde, the blonde who can't walk because you fall over and chew gum at the same. I mean, like, I played every stereotypical blonde character you could think of. And I remember thinking, if I could book this, it'll change my life. And the reason I thought it would was I thought I get to shoot a gun. I get to carry a gun and be a badass, which not a lot of women did in 2001 when I got the script. And at least they did in sci-fi. They did in mainstream TV. And so I fought hard for that role, and I know that I was much younger than they wanted to go. I was the youngest cast member, and I just didn't let it go. I just kept going and believed that I was right for the role. But Eddie knew the whole time. You know, he knew the whole time. No one else did, except for Eddie, Mary, and Ron Moore.
Yeah.
Well, Ron Moore. I mean, obviously the credentials that guy has as a filmmaker and a writer, his gut instinct has proven him right time and time again. You played the character Starbuck, which was played in the original series by Dirk Benedict. Have you ever met Dirk and compared notes with him or anything?
Yeah, I have met Dirk. You know, Dirk was lovely when I met him. You know, we did this thing called Starbuck by Starbuck, a Starbucks at Starbucks. It was very funny.
Wow.
And then shortly after that, he wrote an article called Lost in Castration or something like that, like Save Starbucks Genitalia. And I...
Really?
Yeah.
After you had this interaction?
I believe it was after. Came to my attention after.
Yeah.
I remember just sort of feeling like, all right, old man, get over it. you know? And being like, whatever, like, it's not that big of a deal. You know, it wasn't that big of a deal at the time. Ron Moore didn't make it a big deal. He didn't set out to make Starbuck female. You know, they knew with the way that the military had changed and society had changed. We were in the middle of a very real war when this started in 2003.
Right.
Women were on the front lines. He knew that if he had no female military personnel, that it was not going to be true and realistic. So he literally just, on a whim, said this one and this one. Like, it wasn't, he didn't think about it too much. I believe that's the way that the story goes, that he didn't, you know. So our characters were not written as women. They were written as soldiers, and they just happened to be women.
With your character Bo Katan in Star Wars, there was an obvious succession in how that character grew and evolved. When we were first introduced to the character, she was basically in the background with the Death Watch at first. And we noticed her because she had a funky looking visor on her helmet. It was curved. And we learned that she was part of this Night Owl group. Then she emerged, and we realized the significance of the character as it was revealed she is Satine's sister. And so that adds a lot of weight onto the character almost instantly, because you want to know more about the character right away. How did she and her sister have this falling apart? Why are they so separate in the way they look at things? How was that for you as an actor to grow with the character through the early days of her introduction in animation all the way up to season 3 of The Mandalorian?
You know, I think that part of the reason, and one of the main reason I believe people are so drawn to Bo, and why I think she is for the most part well received, is that we've had time to fall in love with her. We've had time to feel connected to her. A lot of times you're not given that luxury, you know, and this is a character that we've known now for over a decade, and it was a slow burn. And I don't know if that was the original intent for her. You know, when I was offered the role of Bo, it wasn't Satine's sister. It was a female Mandalorian, which to me was cool. I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
She evolved, I think, because it was interesting to write. And when a character is interesting to write, I think people lean into that. And you know, that's why she grew as a character in Clone Wars and then Rebels.
Yeah, that's a really, you know, great way to look at it, because with that evolution, it seemed like the character earned everything along the way, and you can follow her path from background player in the Death Watch all the way to owner of the Dark Saber. So tell us how cool it was to fight with the Dark Saber in live action in The Mandalorian.
I mean, it was, you know, it was like 15 years of waiting. It was pretty awesome, you know. This weapon has such significance for the Mandalorian people and for Bo as a character. And she never truly understood how to lead until she was humbled. And that's when she became a good leader. And you can go back and you can look at her and you can look at her story from the very beginning, and you can see how in hindsight every single thing had to happen the way that it happened for her to end up where she ended up. You know, she had to go through those dark moments. She had to go through that loss. She had to go through that guilt. She had to go through that just tremendous fracturing of ego to get to a place where she lives in service of her people, and all she wants is what's best for the Mandalorians. And when she took herself out of it, that's when she finally became the rightful ruler. And I find it very poetic that the thing that the people put so much emphasis and credence on was destroyed, and she's no less of a leader without it. And that's cool.
That's right. So do you think the Dark Saber is something of a false god for the Mandalorians?
I don't know.
It seems they worship it, but it's really not necessary. It's just a trinket, a weapon, an object. True leadership comes from the individual, not from the weaponry in which they have.
I think that's something that's beautiful about Star Wars and the metaphor, the overarching theme of hope throughout the entire universe, that I think that it is the interpretation of what things mean. And that's why it's so important to so many different audience members for so many different reasons. And that's why there's such a passionate fan base, because hope looks completely different for many different people, and the metaphor of what the Dark Saber was, if that is what it was, means something different to so many different people. What it means to me and what it represents to me is not necessarily important, because it's such a personal experience, Star Wars,
Very much so.
Oh, we know. We know.
We have been doing these after shows after each episode of every Disney Plus show airs. We jump on and we take live calls and all of that. And I will tell you that throughout Mandalorian season 3, everybody was so suspicious of Bo Katan. We didn't know, like, at any moment we thought there was a possibility that she, I almost said you, that she was going to betray the Mandalorian, betray his friends, but at the end of the day, she was true blue. She's loyal. And just curious, as you were playing the role, were you directed to play it in any kind of ambiguous way? Like, maybe she's good, maybe she's not. And we were just projecting that as viewers, or were we just projecting it as viewers, I guess?
The way that I played Bo this season was I truly tried to play the authenticity of every moment. And for Bo, she always is thinking. She is I call her very stoic. I feel like she is. I feel like when she speaks, she means it. It's thought out. She doesn't waste breath, So I think sometimes there's interpretation to that, because you can interpret silence.
Yes. I mean, does it surprise you at all that viewers, had you heard that before, that viewers were suspect of her and her motives? Because as you're saying, you're playing it totally straight and legit. So, is that a surprise that some of us thought that maybe, maybe there's more to her?
Not at all. I think because of where she's been, everyone could suspect where she's going. I think that's why it's even more sort of meaningful that she is true blue, because she's learned those lessons, and she's evolved. She's such from start to finish, she's I love her. I think she's such an interesting character.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why Dave Filoni keeps bringing her back time and time again. One of my favorite Bo moments, and I just want to know if this was one of your favorite moments, was the season finale for season 2, when Luke Skywalker showed up on the bridge of that Imperial ship. And you were there. You saw it happen.
This is the moment that the fans will never let me live down. And I think it's absolutely hysterical. I wasn't there. I mean, I was there. I've talked about this so much. But there was a body double there that day, and he had dots on his face.
The magic of movies.
Yeah. And I was told by Dave that it was Plo Koon. And I believed him.
Oh, he would say that. He would say that.
And, so Ming Na and I have this really funny moment on my show on the Sackhoff show, where she literally, we get in this very fun fight with each other where she's like, I knew the moment. And I was like, you did not. There is no way you knew. I think that in that moment, I was just so excited to be there. I was only there for 2 episodes, It's a huge moment. Yeah. There's so much powerful energy in this scene. You have this phenomenal scene with all these incredibly strong women that are there because they're the most qualified. And they're just like storming the bridge. And it was just such a cool moment. And then to have it end, I was just so caught up. If he told me it was Santa Claus, I would have believed him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you know what? Years and years down the line, you'll be able to tell people, I was there when they brought Luke Skywalker back.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
No one needs to know, because if they doubt you, just watch the show. There you are. You're right there.
It's a madhouse over here, guys. All the time.
But when were you first aware of what actually was happening in the show? Were you just watching it with everybody else when it debuted? Really?
Yes. I watched it with everyone else.
They kept it that secret.
I found out when everyone else found out.
Oh, yeah. I bet you were sitting there in the family room going, oh, here comes Plo Koon. This is going to be great. Plo Koon.
I did, you guys. So gullible. And everyone's like, it was a lone X-Wing. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, and he had a cape. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, and he had a glove. I'm like, do you know how many Star Wars characters have capes and gloves?
It's nothing special.
It's, I love it. I think it's fantastic. And I think that's what's so beautiful about The Mandalorian. And that's what's so wonderful about this show and what Disney is doing, and their ability to keep things secret is so beautiful, because we're all catapulted back to our childhood and having these moments in the midst of this massive connectivity of social media.
Yeah.
The fact that Grogu showed up and nobody knew, come on, that's amazing. The fact that Luke Skywalker showed up and nobody knew, including me, and I was in the freaking scene. That's huge, you guys. Like, in today's day and age, to be able to keep those secrets, to give people that moment of cinema is huge. That's crazy. And that's a massive feat to be able to do something like that. It takes a lot of secrecy and a lot of trust,
Does it create any tension or extra stress on set, or is it really no different, in terms of that with other projects and shows that you've been on, the secrecy and all of that?
No, it's the exact same. You just have to think a little bit more when you're doing interviews, guys, because you have to be careful about what you're saying, not because I'm concerned, but because I don't want to ruin it for anybody. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. Yeah. Why would I want to take that moment away from somebody, So you just have to be a little bit more careful, Star Wars means so much to so many people, and the community is so passionate, and I am part of that community, and I love it so much. I grew up with Star Wars. I'm living my dream. I don't want to ruin that for anyone, So so it's there's no more pressure. It's almost just, that you're being trusted with something that's so cool, Do
you ever get the chance to take selfies with Baby Yoda on the set? I still call him Baby Yoda. I know his name's Grogu.
So do I.
Nobody needs to correct me, but yeah, I knew it.
Yeah, I call him Baby Grogu, actually.
Well, yeah, that's a good way to do it.
I take so many selfies. We're not supposed to. If I ever get fired, you guys, it's because, I've taken too many photos. I remember, when I was first there, And it was like no phones on set, no pictures, no nothing. Because like Grogu like hadn't come out yet. Like, well, no, he did because the first season had come out. But still, it was like no pictures, no pictures. And I remember taking out my phone and taking a picture as fast as I could because I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to come back here. This is so cool. Because I didn't know how many episodes I was going to be in. I was like, this is so cool. I need pictures now. And I was, willing to take the risk for proof.
And now it's no big deal. You and Grogu are pals. Some might even consider you sort of a stepmom.
I think so a little bit. Listen, I spent more time on set with him, I think, than anybody else. So I feel like I've earned a selfie or two at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Now, I don't think you spend as much time on the set with Carl Weathers, but I believe there was at least one or two scenes you guys were in together in season 3, and unfortunately, Carl passed away. I just am wondering if you guys developed any sort of camaraderie or friendship.
Carl was larger than life. He was always smiling. He had just this big, booming voice that instantly put you at ease. He and I had a very different way of working. We didn't always agree. Give
us an example of what you didn't agree on.
Just actor shit. Not everybody acts the same way. Actors are weird, guys. That's
going to be a great name for your autobiography, by the way. Could you? Actor shit.
Yeah. Everyone has a different way of coming to their work. And sometimes you disagree and sometimes you don't. But the one thing that Carl and I always had was just this joy of each other's company outside of work. I always enjoyed seeing him. He was such a wonderful, wonderful human being. And I remember we always laughed about the dialogue sometimes and like what it took to memorize science fiction dialogue. I remember a scene that we did and I literally had to say, Pirate King Gorian Shard is captaining a Cumulus-class Corsair carrying a complement of snub fighters.
Wow. That's
and you have to.
I don't think I could
understand it. So you got to break it down. So you understand exactly what you're saying. Because I need to know a Cumulus class. I need to know what snub fighters are. I need to know who Gorian Shard is. I need to know that he's okay. So he's carrying he's got a ship, got a lot of guys on it. And they're going to drop down. Got it. Okay. That I understand. So now it helps the memorization, but you've got to break it down. And he and I talked about it all the time, how you break it down, how you take it in little chunks and then you put it together.
Is it any wonder then to you that Carrie Fisher, before she passed, and Mark Hamill still remember lines like that they really struggle to get down? But boy, Mark can recite his audition for the original Star Wars to this day because of that type of style. It imprints itself, huh?
I thought I was going to get fired over a line in Battlestar Galactica when I was 22 years old. I'd never done sci-fi before. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't understand how to memorize it, and I honestly thought I was going to get fired. And now I have nightmares about we've got violent decompressions irradiating from the port flight pod.
Well, Battlestar, it was a good training ground for you to be able to tackle in some Star Wars dialogue. There's obvious similarities between the two franchises, but what do you notice is, would you say is the main difference between the two and the main similarity between the two?
Well, I think Starbuck is Han Solo. I think that it was gentle ripoff. You know, and that's how I played her, very much so. You know, I think that good sci-fi at its core is a drama that just happens to be set in space. And that's what they both are. You know, they're both about hope for something, you know.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. I hear the whistling in the background.
Can you hear that?
Do you hear that? Yeah. If you're happy and you know it, clap your.
I was like, am I freaking out here? Why all of a sudden?
We have a.
I just had to say something about it because
old baby, and so we have. He's out that direction, and then I had my 2.5-year-old who was like sitting right here, who was sitting on a couch staring at me.
Wait a minute.
Plus 2 dogs.
You have a 2.5-year-old and a 2.5-month-old?
I do.
Holy cow.
Wow, congrats.
Thank you so much. We're very tired
that's great.
of it.
How's this? I was going to say, how's the sleep going? But if you have the 2.5-year-old, you know, and you know what to expect. And
you know, we have a village. We have a village. We're very blessed. You know, we not only do we have hired help, but we also have my in-laws moved in with us for a while. So we have more help than we know what to do with, and we couldn't do it without them. And so
that's great.
And that is not lost on me by no means.
Well, the whistling is very entertaining. And I just had to say something because I was listening more to the whistling than I was to your answer. And you were talking about what you felt were the main differences and main similarities between the two franchise, Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars.
I think the like I was going to say, the main similarity is that they both are grounded in hope, and everyone can identify with that. I think their main differences are that I can't, you know, Battlestar Galactica feels more, I don't want to say grounded, but it feels more like a metaphor for what we're actually going through in life right now. Whereas Star Wars feels grander. It's a much larger universe.
George, you know, it's operatic. You know, George always talked about it being big. Speaking of George, I know you weren't there for Luke Skywalker, but did you ever happen to be on set when George was dropping by?
I have yet to meet George.
You've missed that too. Oh my gosh.
I know.
You missed Luke. Now
I've
you
been
missed
to
George.
Skywalker Ranch. I've never met George.
What were you at Skywalker Ranch for? Were you there to record dialogue or anything, or were you just there?
No, I was just there for a party.
Ooh, all right. That's the best way. Well,
they throw great parties there. So.
You talked about the difference between the two franchises, but one thing that's the same is they both have very loyal, dedicated fan bases. So you had already sort of been primed for what it's like to be in a show that has so many passionate and opinionated eyeballs on it. What has your experience been like within, let's say, fandom, whether it be Battlestar or Star Wars? Positive experiences?
You know, my experience has always been very positive. Not always. We're all aware of the fandom, and we're all aware when it goes to a place of negativity because it becomes news. And it's a shame. My personal experience is that I've tried desperately to just take the good and ignore the negativity or the bad. But I have been luckier than a lot of people who have felt the opposite, you know. So, and that is their story to tell, not mine, you know. but I think that's what I've learned to do in this space is focus on the positive and try to ignore the bad, because you can never win everyone. You know, there's always going to be someone.
Right.
For me, I've learned there's always going to be someone that doesn't like my performance, that doesn't like me as a person, that doesn't think I'm a good actor, and then there's always going to be people that are the opposite of that. You know, it's the trick and the task for myself is to not let the negative voices, which are not larger, become louder in my own head.
Right.
Well, that sounds very healthy way to approach all of that. Almost like an athlete, to try to keep all the noise away and just focus on getting that home run and celebrating that. Well, you've been really generous with your time with us, Katie. We do have a few more kind of simple Star Wars questions to ask you that any Star Wars fan can answer. That's not trivia. These are all questions based on your feelings, your personal opinions, and your Star Wars fandom. They're very simple questions, but they may provide some of the most complex answers.
They're never
and we've been doing
questions.
this for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shoot.
All right. This is called the Yoda Questionnaire.
Oh, yes. We need to make it official here.
We need to make it official.
The Yoda Questionnaire.
All right. Thank you, Richard Cheese, for that introduction. Yeah, these have been especially prepared by Jedi Master Yoda himself. Faxed from his cave on Dagobah. Dagobah is not really known
He doesn't
for its
have
technology.
email.
So no email, no text messages, just a fax.
Fax machine.
And as Jim said, there are no wrong answers, but there are answers that are more right than others. So we'll start with the first question for Katie Sackoff. Katie, who or what, in the interest of inclusion here, who or what is your favorite Star Wars character?
Guys, this is so easy. It's Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, wow. Man.
Holy cow.
I was not expecting that. Wow.
So,
Katie, that's a first.
Expand on your answer, please.
It is.
Why Jar
It's a
Jar?
first.
Because he tries so hard and he's so bad at it. I love it.
He does try hard. He
Just
does.
like
and
the
at the end of the day, yeah.
Like the character.
Good for you. That's
he
a
looks
first.
like a floppy bunny. How do you not like him?
I love it. I love
That's
it. As I
great.
say, there are no wrong answers, but they are revealing for sure. All right. Well, we're going to take that was the light side of Katie Sackhoff. Now we're going to look at the dark side and ask you about your least favorite Star Wars character.
This is when a lot of people answer Jar Jar Binks. But you definitely, George Lucas.
I'm going to answer this personally, and I'm going to say Darth Maul.
Ooh, least favorite. Why is that? He gives you the heebie-jeebies?
Because I don't like the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like the actors, and I like the character. He's fun to watch. But from a Bo Katan perspective, that guy was a pain in my ass.
Right.
Yeah,
Killed
that's
your sister.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
He killed your sister.
I mean, guys.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from.
You did get to sit on his. Did get to sit on that throne of his, afterwards. So you kind of had the last laugh. But all right, Darth Maul. So Katie, what Star Wars moment? And there have been many, many across all the films and television series. But what Star Wars moment always makes you smile?
I love you. I know.
Oh,
that's
one.
a great one.
Yeah.
A classic.
Classic.
What
All-time
Star Wars
classic.
moment always makes you sad?
Oh my God. There's so many. There's so many.
Is there one that brings a little tear to the eye or a lump in the throat?
I think seeing Carrie again,
We do know.
Yeah. I think that,
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think that.
All right. There are a lot of different vocations and jobs that one could have in the Star Wars universe. You play a Mandalorian, but in the real world, Katie Sackoff, if you were in the galaxy far, far away, what profession would you most like to have?
I mean, maybe I would like work in a droid bar because it's like a super easy job.
In a droid, just serving the droids.
Well, because they all have the
Oil.
same thing. You don't have to.
motor
You
oil.
don't have to mix drinks. You know.
That's also a first.
Just
That's
serve up
great.
shot glasses of 10W40 and
That's it.
that's it.
You know.
Kick back and relax.
That's all you need.
What?
Maybe they need a little
What
grease
job-
every once in a while, but like that ain't my job. I'm just the bartender. You know what I mean?
What job or profession would you least like to have in the Star Wars universe? The worst job.
Like trash compactor, like garbage man. I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those
How
those
many
things are
times
deadly.
Did somebody? Yeah, and how many times did someone accidentally fall in there? I mean, I'm guessing that they're probably always scraping something off those walls.
You know, like
that's bad.
yeah, I don't want to go in there.
One final question, and this is the most important. If there was another Star Wars movie to be made, and we know that there will be, there's always going to be new Star Wars movies, and you were in it, which, by the way, doesn't seem so far-fetched. Normally, when we ask this question of our guests, it seems really far-fetched. But with you, I don't know. It's a feeling that maybe this could actually happen. But we're going to give it a twist. If there was another Star Wars movie made, and you were in it, and it was directed by none other than George Lucas himself, what would you like to hear him say to you after he says cut on your last scene?
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's such a hard one, you guys. You did good, kid. That's what I would want George to say. It's like I'm getting to a point where I'm not a kid anymore. But I guess to George I am. So
Yeah, to George you would be. So you did good, kid. That's, you know what? That's like, I mean, for George Lucas, I mean, that's raw emotion. If he said something like that to you, you did good, kid. I mean, that's in George speak. That's
about as complimentary as I
probably
can
should
get.
have said I'd want him to be like, so we'll see you on the next one.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm talking about
Hey, I hope
fantasy, a
we
little
see
job
you.
security would be nice, right?
I hope we see you in the next one. I hope you appear in Mandalorian and Grogu. I really do.
Oh, thanks, guys. Well, you know.
I thought you were just going to just keep smiling and let that comment go right by. But because we know you, obviously, we know you can't say anything. All I'm saying is we hope to see you in Mandalorian and Grogu or in any feature Star Wars production because there's more of the Bo Katan story to be told.
Oh, bless you. You know, if I knew, I wouldn't tell you anyway.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't flat out ask.
So we probably shouldn't ask you about that romance between Bo and Din Djarin. Probably no comment on that either, right?
Yeah. Her song has not yet been written and the contract has not yet been signed. So
That scene made me cry.
Oh, the scene with Din and Bo when he was essentially
says,
pledging his allegiance to her.
When he tells her that your song has not yet been written and I will follow you. That was a huge moment. And I think that the culmination of everything that she's been through, to have this person's loyalty and trust means the world to her. It made me cry in the moment and it made me, cry watching it.
Wow. Great scene.
Yeah, it is.
And we're also looking forward to seeing you and hearing you in Watchmen coming next week. Watchmen's going to be amazing. You play Laurie Jupiter, a.k.a. Silk Spectre 2.
Yeah.
And you're performing alongside some other Star Wars veterans like I'm seeing in the cast, Corey Burton is playing Captain Metropolis. He'll be amazing, as he always is. And Titus Welliver
You guys,
is playing
Titus.
Rorschach.
You remember the scene we had in Star Wars when I,
Yes.
put the knife to his throat? Come on.
That was great. Do you bring that up to him? Were you guys together for any of these recording sessions?
We were not, but he's on my podcast, so you'll have to see if I bring it up. Everyone will have to go see.
I haven't yet to listen to that episode, but the interviews you've been doing have been just really great, very natural, awesome conversations with, friends of yours from the industry. And the fact that you are interviewing a lot of people that you've worked with and have that camaraderie and friendship with, it really shows in the warmth of the interviews and the authenticity of the conversations you're able to get. And you certainly has brought that to us, too, here on Rebel Force Radio.
I think that that's what it comes down to, right? Like, if you create an environment where people feel like they're in a safe space and they can talk and they can be honest and truthful and know that that if you say something you're not supposed to say, i.e. work, that it gets cut out, you know? Like, I think that people are more open when they feel protected. And that is really important on my show, to create just a place where people feel safe and have great conversations.
Well, okay, if you have to pass along any edit notes to us at the conclusion of this interview, I totally understand.
That Jar Jar Binks answer, she's going to think about that overnight and go, guys, I don't think I can handle that. Katie, you've just been awesome. Can't thank you enough for your time and the great stories and insight and all of that. Really, really appreciate it. And it was great to meet your husband earlier and hear him whistling and to know about your wonderful growing family. So congratulations on all the success and all of that. We look forward to much more from you in Star Wars and beyond.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys, so much. Absolutely.
Chewie, get us out of here!
Oh, that's going to do it for us here this week on Rebel Force Radio. There's always more Star Wars than we can possibly get through. We've got the whole rundown here. Don't worry, that just assures you that we'll have more and more from the weekly podcast here at Rebel Force Radio. We just got to keep bumping stuff. But Katie Sackoff, how great was she in the cantina? Awesome. So much fun and just a genuine human being. Great to talk to her. And of course, she is always welcome here on Rebel Force Radio. As we said earlier, if you need more Rebel Force Radio in your life, and why wouldn't you? You can find all of that and so much more on Patreon, patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Weekly full show video. That's right, the whole Katie Sackoff interview, us talking about Star Wars Lego, all of it. The Bothans, Prune Face. Where else are you going to watch that other than on the exclusive all-access tier on Rebel Force Radio Patreon, so you can see the full show video there. In addition to all of the exclusive podcasts you get access to a wonderful, fantastic community of Star Wars fans, much like yourself, and Eric from Phoenix, who we heard earlier on in the show. We're also available on YouTube, so we do put highlights of the podcast over there on YouTube, in addition to really it serving as an archive of sorts for so many other interviews and bits and parts of Rebel Force Radio history. So check us out over on YouTube, and please do subscribe to Rebel Force Radio on YouTube and leave a comment, do all that good stuff. It certainly helps us out a lot. What also helps us out is if you follow us on our socials. We're available on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram. That's a great place to find out when we're going to be doing live shows, or let's say there's a change in the release schedule. That's where you can find that stuff, and you can interact with us here at Rebel Force Radio, the official website, rebelforceradio.com. But if you want to really help us, best way to do that is to do what you're doing right now. Listen to the podcast. Listen on your way to work. Listen while you're mowing the lawn. Listen while you're maybe unloading the dishwasher. That's one of my things. I hate unloading the dishwasher, so I always listen to a podcast while I'm doing that. We don't care what you're doing while you're listening to us. Just listen and refer your friends to us here at Rebel Force Radio. So if you got a friend that maybe you talk with at the job, in the Cube Farm, wherever it is that you work, and that you find out they're a Star Wars fan and they haven't heard of Rebel Force Radio or listened to Rebel Force Radio, you got to set them straight. Tell them all about us. Please subscribe to the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. And if it allows you to do so, we'd love to have you review. Just one simple rule, please.
Make them good.
And that'll do it for us. Once again, huge thanks to Katie Sackoff. Awesome, awesome time with her. We'll have more Rebel Force Radio for you next week, right here on the weekly podcast. We'll see you next time for Rebel Force Radio. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.
Misa going to hurt you, sir.